Rubbing
Well, we
bananas.
are, by my best recollection, coming into the conclusion of April. April's on its heels now.
Mm-hmm.
May is soon upon us. It's hard to believe. I was talking yesterday with the family about just how one of the unique things in this is how hard it is to keep track of time and days, because everything's kind of the same in so many ways, where everything else was punctuated by unique events that were allocated to specific days.
Right.
Now the unique event that they all have is seeing me every day. That's their unique event. And they lose track of time because of it. So time becomes a different thing to measure when so many things don't change like they once did
Right.
not that long ago. Let's get started this morning. We've got a really phenomenal, a little shorter, but a phenomenal collection of readings. And then we're going to have I think a fair bit to talk about. So this is prayer for deliverance from the lying Gentiles who press war. But as you're listening to this first psalm, it's a short psalm, but I'll just give you just a tiniest bit of background and then frame it up a bit. Oh, and you know what? Hold on. Before I start, some people have asked, maybe you can screenshot this if you care. Some people have said, is there any way we can see the questions before we start the reading? Here are the questions. And what specific ways do you need to depend more on the Lord and less on yourself? How can you use what you've learned from, that's, by the way, the Psalm 120 and 121. I'll be reading those. Then how can you use what you've learned from Psalm 140 to deal with your fears? And in what specific ways could you allow God more freedom to work through you each day? So if you want to screenshot that quick, I'll put us back to the top. But as I'm moving to the top, the first psalm is really an interesting one because in some ways I think a lot of you can resonate with it. Not all of you, but a lot of you who work with non-believing people, and in particular, those that are non-believing hard-hearted or non-believing and vulgar. If you're in sometimes some of the construction type fields or if you're in advertising. I worked in advertising for many years. I think some of you know. And in certain fields, it seems as if there's a propensity for vulgarity and hard-heartedness. And this psalmist is lamenting that he is surrounded by these kinds of people. And in that, he says, I call on the Lord in my distress, and he answers me. Save me, Lord, from lying lips, from deceitful tongues. What will he do to you, and what more besides your deceitful tongue? Let me say that again. And what will he do to you, and what more besides you, deceitful tongue? Will he punish you with warriors' sharp arrows, with burning coals from the boom tree? Boom tree, we'll come back to that. Woe to me that I dwell in Meshach and live among the tents of Kedar. Too long have I lived among those who hate peace. I am for peace, but when I speak, they are for war. Interesting reflections. Psalm 121. I lift up my eyes to the mountains. where does my help come from? My help comes from the Lord, the maker of heaven and earth. He will not let your foot slip. He who watches over you will not slumber. Indeed, he who watches over Israel neither slumber nor sleep. The Lord watches over you. The Lord is your shade at your right hand. The sun will not harm you by day, nor the moon by night. The Lord will keep you from all harm. He will watch over your life. The Lord will watch over your coming and going, both now and forever.
This is Psalm 140, a prayer for protection from violent persons. Rescue me, Lord, from evildoers. Protect me from the violent who devise evil plans in their hearts and stir up war every day. They make their tongues as sharp as a serpent's. The poison of vipers is on their lips. Keep me safe, Lord, from the hands of the wicked. Protect me from the violent who devise ways to trip my feet. The arrogant have hidden a snare for me. They have spread out the cords of their net and have set traps for me along my path. I say to the Lord, you are my God. Hear, Lord, my cry for mercy. Sovereign Lord, my strong deliverer, you shield my head in the day of battle. Do not grant the wicked their desires, Lord. Do not let their plans succeed. Those who surround me proudly rear their heads. May the mischief of their lips engulf them. May burning coals fall on them. May they be thrown into the pit, into miry pits, never to rise. May slanderers not be established in the land. May disaster hunt down the violent. I know that the Lord secures justice for the poor and upholds the cause of the needy. Surely the righteous will praise your name, and the upright will live in your presence.
Lord, hear my prayer. Listen to my cry for mercy. In your faithfulness and righteousness, come to my relief. Do not bring your servant into judgment, for no one living is righteous before you. The enemy pursues me. He crushes me to the ground. He makes me dwell in the darkness like those long dead. So my spirit grows faint within me. My heart within me is dismayed. I remember the days of long ago. I meditate on all your works and consider what your hands have done. I spread out my hands to you. I thirst for you like a parched land. Answer me quickly, Lord. My spirit fails. Do not hide your face from me, or I will be like those who go down to the pit. Let the morning bring me word of your unfailing love, for I have put my trust in you. Show me the way I should go, for to you I entrust my life. Rescue me from my enemies, Lord, for I hide myself in you. Teach me to do your will, for you are my God. May your good spirit lead me on level ground. For your name's sake, Lord, preserve my life. In your righteousness, bring me out of trouble. In your unfailing love, silence my enemies. Destroy all my foes, for I am your servant.
Psalms 44. Praise be to the Lord, my rock, who trains my hand for war, my fingers for battle. He is my loving God and my fortress, my stronghold and my deliverer, my shield in whom I take refuge, he who subdues people under me. Lord, what are human beings that you care for them? Mere mortals that you think of them. They are like a breath. Their days are like a fleeting shadow. Part your heavens, Lord, and come down. Touch the mountains so that they smoke. Send forth lightning and scatter the enemies. Shoot your arrows and rout them. Reach down your hand from on high. Deliver me and rescue me from the mighty waters, from the hands of foreigners, whose mouths are full of lies, whose right hands are deceitful. I will sing a new song to you, my God. On the 10-stringed lyre, I will make music to you, unto the to the one who gives victory to kings, who delivers his servant David. From the deadly sword deliver me. Rescue me from the hands of foreigners, whose mouths are full of lies, whose right hands are deceitful. Then our sons in their youth will be like well-nurtured plants, and our daughters will be like pillars carved to adorn a palace. Our barns will be filled with every kind of provision. Our sheep will increase by thousands, by tens of thousands in our fields. Our oxen will draw heavy loads. There will be no breaching of walls, no going into captivity, no cry of distress in our streets. Blessed is the people of whom this is true. Blessed is the people who God is the Lord.
You know, woe to me that I dwell in Meshach and that I live amongst the tents of Kedar. looked up what that was because I didn't remember. And Meshach is the son of Japheth, the son of Noah, and wound up being kind of a one that, in spite of seeing God move in a way that saved his family, rebelled against God, and then later became kind of part of a hard-hearted people that had turned from God. And so did their descendants. Were known to be kind of cruel and ruthless band of people. And then the tents of Kedar are, he's the son of Ishmael, actually the second son of Ishmael, which comes from the line of Abraham, right, with Abraham and Ishmael, but really remarkably similar in that they were really rebellious, ruthless group of people that were far from the heart of God. And so he's now surrounded by those family lines, and that's what he's lamenting as he spoke into that. And then I wanted to share one thing, because years ago, Elizabeth and I, we went down to visit my grandma. My grandmother was from Spring Grove, Minnesota, a little town in southern Minnesota, and she had gotten to be in her mid-late 90s when I think she was 97 or 98. I guess not mid, I guess just late 90s, when she lived to be 102. So I think she was in her late 90s, 98, maybe even 99, when she recorded this little reflection. It's actually a 30-minute reflection. We're going to play just a minute and a half of it. But I want to introduce you to my little grandma, and then I want to tell you a little story about her.
1999 of the Spring Grove, it's a synod meeting. And all these are pastors and professors, at least so they're labeled at the bottom of the picture.
So they wouldn't all be Spring Grove people?
No, these are most likely Spring Grove. No, they're visitors from other.
Visitors from other
It's
churches.
amazing, yes, there are that many. And the way they had to travel in those days, in 1899, they would have to come by horse and buggy.
Okay.
Okay, this is my mom and dad's wedding picture. Peter and Georgina Soldal Onstead, married November 26, 1905. And Pastor Kasberg was the pastor who married them. And this is a picture of the wedding party. My mother was a dressmaker. She had gone to dressmaking school in Decorah, and she made all these dresses. And this is the reception at the Soldal home after the wedding. This house is still standing towards Rooster Valley. It's west of Blackhammer.
Do you know who's living in that house now?
No, I have no idea who lives in it now.
Okay.
Here's another picture of that house. My grandpa is standing on the porch. And this is a picture of the house that I grew up in, at least my first 9, 10 years. This house belonged to my great-grandfather, Helga Solberg, and it's on the farm is about 4 miles north of Spring Grove. That's my dad and my mother and older sister and brother that I'm not on the picture yet. And they're in the yard, Mildred Onstead and Chris Onstead.
And that house is no longer standing?
No, that house, this was originally a log house, and they've sided it and added onto it. I don't know, the original house was about 18 feet long by maybe 15 wide. And they've added on to it. I think the upstairs is added on, and and this part is all new. That was the parlor and a bedroom out downstairs, and a storeroom and another bedroom upstairs. This part is the original part, and then a kitchen was added on also. Oh, and this is the old entrance to the cellar. We lifted up those two doors and descended a few stone steps down into the cellar. It was kind of a gloomy, scary place.
Did you store any vegetables down there?
Oh yes, there was a potato bin. There was a potato bin there. I don't remember too much about the rest of it.
Along with some spiders.
Yes. Nobody liked to go down and get things, but it was always nice and cool down there. This porch was built on, and the house had a black heating stove with a kind of a chrome crown top that you could slide to one side and set a tea kettle on top to keep it warm. And on the front side it had mica glass, so you could look in on the coals. We didn't burn coal, we burned wood. And the wood pile, the spare wood was piled on this porch, and then we'd bring in a couple pieces of chunks, as we call them, to put in the heater. I remember my dad sitting alongside the stove on a winter evening, smoking his pipe and reading a newspaper. Not a relaxer chair. He was in a straight back chair. This was our family before my baby sister was born. We were 7 children here.
For 40 minutes, she goes on and reflects on Spring Grove and her family history. And that was my uncle that kind of was interviewing her, and it got recorded in the Hall of small town fame something. So I don't know, kind of a neat little story. But
Yeah.
my wife and I went to visit her at the nursing home, and she was living in a nursing home in her late 90s in Houston, Minnesota. And we took and went out for a walk with her, and I said, Grandma, you've seen so much over all these years, how have you navigated all of the ups and downs and all the highs and lows? And she looked at Elizabeth and I and just smiled. And then she said, I lift my eyes up to the mountains. Where does my help come from? My help comes from the Lord, the maker of heaven and earth. And in Houston, you've got those large rolling hills. And so there's almost a mountain-esque kind of a feel on either side. And this was kind of one of her anchoring motif psalms that what allowed her to navigate all of the hardships and all of the pain and all of the uncertainty of life was that she knew where her help comes from. And what a powerful legacy that has been to me, and ultimately, hopefully, to my family. But thought I would share that.
What's the significance, do you think, of the mountains?
I think it's just a metaphor that causes our heads to gaze in an upward fashion and gaze towards the heavens.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm a Lord of the Rings nerd. I probably shouldn't disclose that, but I did.
Oh, that's
and some of my favorite segments of Lord of the Rings stories, I guess, or the movies, are when when they're in the midst of a battle, and they're in need of help. And one of the later movies, they look to the hills, and over the crest of the hill comes the
A warring army on there.
they're coming to help, you know. And mean, I know that's not biblical, but that when you think about, you know, looking to the hills, you know, oftentimes that's what we see.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
Amanda's got an interesting point. Majestic.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's that whole Psalms is pretty rich of things. Even talking about the sun and the moon in that Psalms, because in Hebrew culture, and in that time, they felt like if you were out in the sun too long, or even into the moon, the rays of the moon would hurt you. It would be very, very harmful. And so it's, when you put it into that, the Lord watches over you. The Lord is your shade at your right hand. The sun will not harm you by day, nor the moon. And so that's a pretty powerful statement to that culture right there as well. That these two things aren't gonna harm you. That psalm was really rich with visuals.
Yeah. Really, really well constructed, and so well that it's almost lucky Josh isn't here, because he could talk about all the songs that come from this one psalm, I imagine. And
Right.
I mean, there's so much, that we've anchored in our culture into this 121 psalm that has been important to so many people. In fact, there was a missionary from England who was named David Livingstone. And before he went to Africa, this was his declared most important biblical motif that moved him into action and into ministry and into giving himself to the Lord fully, was meditating on this psalm. And he had often quoted and reflected on this in many of his messages. Pretty powerful. All right. Any other reflections before we start that you guys wanted to bring from any of the readings?
Whenever I think of this, and having spent time in Honduras, when you go to the Manuelito project, it's a hillier, there's a hillier area, and there's one in particular that in the morning, as the sun starts coming up, I mean, you can look off and you can see this mountain, and this verse comes to mind very readily. There. In fact, I took the picture, and I've got this app on my phone where you can put Bible verses to things. And I don't know if you've seen that or not, but that particular one came up in a picture from Honduras, and this was the verse that was tied to that one.
Wow. I have never made the connection before until just this very, very moment. But as that verse that I read was kind of one of my grandmother's and Livingston's, it's, I think, going to take a new meaning for me, because I've been to Honduras too. And you know what I know about the mountains in Honduras is that's where coffee is growing. And so I lift my eyes up to where my help comes from.
Bears.
Yeah. I tell you what, I brought some back, and it's really good, folks. They grow coffee.
Yeah.
Good catch.
Yeah.
That was good. Yeah, I brought a lot of coffee back when I went last year. So.
Yeah. Again, I'm coming to you from my Arizona office, thanks to Google.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So just before we dive into the questions, one quick thing about Psalms 144. This psalm was written by David before he became king, right before he was really set upon the throne. And it's interesting because we think of David as a king, as a king warrior, as a man after God's own heart. But then you see in the first, at least for me, you see in the first the sentence there that who trains my hands for war, my fingers for battle. I mean, if you think about David was quite the warrior. He was like the elite of the elite. He was like a Navy SEAL guy when it comes to hand-to-hand battle. And so he had to train and train and train and you know, with all the weapons that the Hebrews used. And so I just thought is interesting. It's like, you know what, he's saying, praise be the Lord, my rock. You know, it's not me who does it. It's the Lord who trains my hands, and the Lord that makes my fingers ready for battle. And that's a good picture for us to say, you know what, it's not by our might or our power, but by the Lord that does things through us.
You know, Linfield, one of the things that I'm amazed at when you say that, and I think is so important and so true, is that, I mean, we are called to prepare and to train and to ready, and then when all that happens, there's two outcomes. There's those who revel in their preparedness and their training, and then there's those who are wise enough to recognize that God gave them the heart, the fortitude, the skills, the abilities, the opportunities, and give credit where credit is properly to be placed, and walk yet in humility where others train and prepare and use their skill that they've honed and crafted, and then they take credit and they walk in pride and arrogance. And what a huge difference that is in the heart of a person. That's one of the things I love about these Psalms, is that you continually see the heart of wanting God to get fame and glory and credit, in spite of the necessity of hard work, training, and preparedness.
Right.
And I think then there's another group that says, well, I want God to get all the credit, so I won't train, prepare, or
Right.
work hard to hone any skill, craft, or I'm not going to do any of that hard work because I want God to get all the glory. You know?
Right.
Wow, I think that misses the point entirely of what we're called to do and how we're called to do it. So,
right.
So what do you need? Specific things do you need to depend more on the Lord and less on yourself, other than a pandemic? What helps you create a sense of dependency?
Well,
I know for me, there are just so many reminders, little things, you know, throughout the course of the day, that people will often, you know, well, what a coincidence, you know, is one of the things that, oh, isn't that interesting how that just happened? And no, the reality is no, you know, there are things that I see in day-to-day life that God just kind of takes care of. And I feel like, you know, he's watching over. And I think for me, it's that idea of just being aware and looking for him. Maybe that's it. Maybe it's, I just look for him. Or when I look for, maybe this is a better way to say it, because that makes it sound like that's all I do. It's not true. But when I look for him, then I see the things that he's doing.
You know, I think for me, it's just like what we were talking about, training. You know, I want to train myself up in the ways of the Lord. You know, I want to be in the Word of God. I want to be in prayer. I want to be talking with one another. And I think when I train myself up, I start depending less on me and more on God, because I'm getting to know. I'm putting that into my heart, His Word of God into my heart and into my head. So it's more of a natural. It becomes nature, and not just something I do. And when I do that, I depend less on me.
You know, I want to just affirm something too. You know, some of you probably know that, you know, pretty regularly, Linfield and I will go off to a cabin, or we'll you know, steal away someplace, and we'll spend a couple of days just preparing message outlines and sermons. And when we're doing a lot of the sermon prep, one of the things that I've observed is how much I sense God's presence because of who you are, Linfield. I think that's an attesting to the fact that you are pressing into God, and you are pressing into prayer and His Word, and you know, that comes out when we're doing those sermon prep days in a very, very vibrant way, because it's in you, and the heart that you bring to the sensitivity to how we craft and design some of this stuff is really valuable to me, and in ways that most people will never recognize valuable to our church. So,
Thanks. You make me cry this
well,
morning.
that's because you're a big baby
I
and
am.
a sensitive guy.
I am.
But the thing is that as I think of this too, just even this morning, something that happened to me again. It's like the fourth or fifth time where I've woken up 5 or 10 minutes before my alarm was set to go off, and my body is beginning to become subject to this meeting. And I'm by nature someone who doesn't necessarily like getting up early in the morning. And if I lived in Arizona, where my office is, I would like getting up even less. And I know we have some Arizona people here this morning, and so grateful that they had the courage and determination to say, you know what, I'm gonna set aside my comfort in order to be with my church as we study the Word. And there's something about the discipline of doing this that's really been good for my heart and my soul, and be able to do it with you guys and this group. And I've sometimes wondered, if this wasn't a way for God to recapture my heart with His Word in a special way, because we get to do it together, and it's creating a greater dependence on Him in a very neat way. So, and as I'm training my body, it's responding. It's becoming responsive, and some things are beginning to change in just the chemical awareness or whatever that would allow me to say, all right, Mark, it is time to get out of bed. The alarm has not gone off. It's time to get out of bed. And there I am. And I look over and I grab my phone. I'm like, oh, geez, I got 10 extra minutes this morning. Can wait for my alarm and hit snooze a few times, or you just jump up and go, And so I sometimes do both. But I want to learn to depend more on the Lord and less on myself, that's for sure. How can you use what you've learned from Psalm 140 to deal with your fears? Psalm 140. Anything that jumped out at you at 140? Rescue me from evildoers, protect me from violent, keep me safe.
Yeah.
Mark, right where you're at, where it says, I say to the Lord, you are my God. Again, the phrases that that David uses, my strong deliverer, you shield my head. For these days of battle, he uses such vivid language, to describe the strength and the protection of the Lord. And so when I look at that, again, we're talking about, well, what are the reminders? What are the things we need to have? You're my shield, you're my deliverer, you're my rock, you're my fortress. I mean, such images of strength and security that he draws on for us.
How about for you, Seth?
Mhm.
Yeah, I highlighted the same thing. I say to the Lord, you're my God. Hear, Lord, my cry for mercy. I think I can't say any better than Todd. I had highlighted, when I was reading through this, I've been out for a while, so I don't know if you guys set this up when you're looking at the Psalms, but for me, when I read the Psalms, trying to process how to interpret it or receive it, in that it is the story of David and he's writing his story. And so to take a verse out and trying to apply it to ourselves, obviously, I don't dwell in Meshech. And so I can't take that particular verse and apply it to me. And so I was sort of highlighting when it referred to God. And it was just those things, calling on the Lord, lifting my eyes up to the mountains and saying to the Lord. There are all these actions, like you guys have already said, about turning to the Lord. And so to me, it's just sort of that, just reminding myself all throughout the day to always be turning towards Him, positioning my heart towards Him, and even talking to Him and calling on Him, for all those reasons, that He is our deliverer and He's our strength.
Mm-hmm. What specific ways could we allow God more freedom to work through you each day? How does that happen?
This one I actually made a note on.
Yeah, what did
I'll
you?
kick it off. So for me, it was in, let's see, in Psalm 144. I think it's just like the 6th line, my stronghold and my deliverer. Let's see, there we go. In my stronghold and my deliverer, it was this interesting idea that I had heard about stronghold, in that we think of a stronghold as a strong and mighty fortress. Yet there's also this idea of a stronghold being something that, you know, you've conquered and you occupy. And for that reason, now it's a defensible stronghold. And this idea of defense is that the way, for me, the stronghold represents that there was something in my life that the devil occupied. You know, it was whatever I had idolized. In my case, it was business and always working and not paying attention to family. And, you know, in that place at one point was not occupied by God. And so God, when he came into my life, kicked Satan out and now occupies that spot. And so when I had read this thing about it, it's interesting just to think that, you know, of your entire body, you know, where you had this hole where God didn't exist and he now comes into, the fact that he is there, I mean, in that specific area of your life, that he kicked Satan out and now occupies, and more importantly, defenses. I mean, that's like strength. That's just like massive amount of strength, to where, you know, when we fully surrender that part of us that we struggle with each day that prevents us from looking and calling towards him, when we surrender, it can become the place that he occupies, which then becomes, strangely enough, the strongest part of us and our testimony, you know, that we can now speak to that. This was where I was. I surrendered it. God came in and he's my stronghold now, my deliverer. And just always remember every day, if, you know, that's what he protected me against, and I'm not going there again.
Right. That's really good.
It is.
You know, Judy had asked, you know, how many years were the Psalms written? And that's an interesting question, because, you know, we often attribute it to David as a whole. I mean, he was the compiler of most of it and the writer of an awful lot of it. Some of what he compiled wasn't actually maybe written by him, but people that were in his assembly that also wrote poetry and music. But he was obviously the most prolific of the writers. It's the longest book in the Bible, and it's considered in the genre of poetry. But it was written, you know, between 1440 BC all the way to like 580 or 86 maybe BC, and it's got a ton of different authors. There's, you know, David, Solomon. You have Korah, Heman. Heman was one of them. The sons of Heman, Ethan, Moses has a part in the Psalms. Some of the collections of writings thought to have been from Moses even. A large amount were written by largely anonymous writers, probably parts of David's courts and others, but we just don't have any idea where they came from. A lot of that we know is because the writing style and the verbs and nouns changed so dramatically from what would be common of those other writers. And that's how they attribute it to other unknown writers. But great question. Appreciate when you have questions to drop those things into the Q&A like that. So thank you for that, Judy. Let's spend a few minutes in prayer this morning. Seth, why don't you open us, and Todd, would you close us? And Linfield and I will pray alongside of you two gentlemen today. By that I mean, you know, agreeing. We're going to agree. You guys are the voices of prayer.
Yeah.
Well, Lord, we thank you so much that, again, we have this opportunity to join together, where so many of us find ourselves in a position like David, just being surrounded, not always by the enemy, but just you know, a previous life of Gentiles, of folks who just don't understand why we've changed and become the way that we are, and why we just can't live the way that we have in the past. Lord, that you have taken up residence within us and are now our stronghold, and we surrender the old to you. So I thank you just for this message of all of these Psalms that we're in, and that great song by Casting Crowns, Lord, just we know to look to you. You are our Savior, our hope, our deliverer, our stronghold, so much to us, Lord. I thank you for that. I thank you for this for group being back here now after a while. It's really great to see everybody in the thread and hear the conversations and hear how you're working in everyone's life, just how you're touching people, and how even everybody in different walks aren't there, but like Erica said, she's dealing with it each and every day, and it shifts for her. Just that your word, this the story that we're in, will continue to reveal as we go through it who you are.
And Lord, the visuals that you continue to show to us: shelter, strength, fortress, rock, shield, helmet, deliverer. Father, there are so many ways that we can be reminded of you, and just how much you love us, how much you care for us, and again, how much you protect us. And I know that as we continue down this path of trying to figure out what the end result is of this virus that we're fighting, there are many out there who are fighting a battle, and we talk about in the front lines, Father, and I want to pray that they would be reminded, that you are there, that our healthcare workers and others can have the reminders. We're fortunate that we have this time this morning to be reminded of you and of your love and your protection, and I pray that protection on them. I believe that it's there, Father, but I'm just asking that they would become aware, that they would see your hand in their lives, and not just those folks, but also for us here this morning as we gather again and say thank you. But Father, just that image of strength and protection in something as strong as a shield, but also as gentle as the wings that you cover us with, the shelter of the wings. And Father, that I just ask that we would be reminded today of your strength and of your protection. Help us to go forward today and live lives that are pleasing to you, Father. Help us to look to you. And I just pray that today we would all make a difference in someone else's life. And with that, I just say thank you, and I praise you. Bless us today in Jesus' name.
Amen.
Amen.
So glad my wife is here on the screen to hear that prayer, Todd, that she might make a difference in someone else's life today. I'm grateful. Yeah. Great. Good praying, sir.
That was for Elizabeth, yeah.
All right, you guys. God bless you. Thanks so much for being here. See you tomorrow.
See you guys.
Have a great
Bye,
day, everybody.
Wait. Don't go anywhere. Don't go anywhere. Oh, I'm sorry. A bunch of people just tipped out. But hey, tonight, join me. We're going to do a drive-in with another ministry, but Josh Poole will be leading some worship on the worship team, and as a show of unity, I'll be sitting with a lot of other pastors just to say, hey, and we're here and we're here together, and we're believing God for great things. So if you want, it's at the fairgrounds. Linfield, do you know what time it is?
6 o'clock, right?
Yeah, 6.
Todd will be in the house, and then afterwards, as people are leaving, there'll be lines with which you drive out, and the different pastors will be there to pray over every vehicle and any specific prayer requests.
Do you want me to put that on the website, Mark?
Yeah, why don't you? We're going to pray quickly and hopefully don't sit at a prayer line for long, but we don't want to create a traffic jam. But they're at the fairgrounds, 6 o'clock tonight. If you want to join us for a drive-in event with Dean Goosen and his ministry. So
Awakening Hope.
Awakening Hope Ministries. So, all right, gang. Have a great day, and maybe we'll see you tonight. Otherwise, we'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.
All right. Have a good day.